Annie Lowe was born on July 3, 1985, in San Jose, California. Coming from a warm and happy Vietnamese-American family, Annie was known for her friendly, amiable, and gentle nature. However, as people got to know her better, they couldn't help but admire and be amazed by her extraordinary academic achievements. From a young age, Annie was exceptionally intelligent. She graduated as the valedictorian from her high school in El Dorado, California, and was affectionately nicknamed the Second Einstein by her classmates. After high school, Annie secured a full scholarship worth $160,000 to study cellular developmental biology at the University of Rochester in New York. After excelling in her undergraduate studies and graduating with honors in 2008, Annie was admitted into a postgraduate program at Yale University. It's a well-known fact that almost every student in the US recognizes Yale, along with Harvard, as part of the prestigious Ivy League, the group of 8 most renowned universities in the country. After 5 years of research work, Annie was on track to earn her PhD in pharmacology. Annie mainly conducted her research in the university's laboratory. Her work had potential applications in treating diabetes and certain types of cancer. Annie was also actively involved in extracurricular activities. She even authored an article for a medical journal on campus safety titled Crime and Safety in New Haven, addressing the crime and safety issues in New Haven. Overall, Annie was an exceptional individual and the dream child of any parent. She was steadfastly walking the path she had chosen, with a bright and open future waiting for her. It seemed Annie had everything: a budding career and love. During her time at university in New York, Annie fell in love with her best friend, Jonathan, who was also an outstanding student coming from a respectable and well-off family. After graduating, the couple maintained a long-distance relationship as Jonathan decided to pursue his PhD at Columbia University in New York, while Annie moved to New Haven, Connecticut for her studies at Yale. Before they embarked on their new academic journeys, Jonathan proposed to Annie and they planned to marry on September 13, 2009. Annie eagerly counted down the days to her wedding, unaware that the day would never come. On September 7, 2009, Annie was busier than ever. Apart from completing her research work at school, she was also preparing for her upcoming wedding, which was just 6 days away. Feeling a bit anxious and stressed, she called a close friend to share her feelings, wondering if they were rushing into marriage. However, after the conversation, Annie felt rejuvenated, knowing in her heart that marrying Jonathan was the right decision. She continued her busy life, filled with anticipation for her big day. On September 8, 2009, Annie still had tasks to complete in the lab before catching her flight the next day to Long Island, where her wedding would be held. Leaving her apartment early in the morning, she took the bus to her workplace on campus. By 10:11 a.m., she was walking to the basement laboratory. Annie spent most of her time there, working on her research involving white mice in room G13. As the day came to an end, classes were over, students left for home, and the building slowly locked down. Annie's housemates found it odd that she usually returned home before 6 p.m. But today, there was no sign of her anywhere. Annie was always cautious and advised everyone to stay safe. She never went to parties alone or walked by herself at night. If Annie had to work late, she made sure someone was there to escort her or walk her home. By 10 p.m., Annie had not returned home and no one could reach her. This was completely out of character, prompting her friend to call the police. Upon arriving at Annie's lab at the university, the officers discovered her keys, wallet, and cell phone, all left behind. It appeared that Annie hadn't used her bank card or phone all day. It seemed she had intended only to briefly visit the lab before returning to her office, leaving all her personal belongings behind. Annie had taken nothing with her except her access card. When she left the room, the security camera confirmed Annie entering the building at 10:11 a.m. She appeared to be holding something, likely her research materials. Although the video footage did not provide a complete story, it was clear that Annie showed no signs of distress when entering the building. She wasn't hurried, anxious, or stopping to speak with anyone suspicious. It was just another regular morning for Annie. Unfortunately, the lab was situated in the basement, where only one camera was operational. Annie seemed not to have passed this camera, as no footage of her was captured. At 12:50 p.m., a fire alarm sounded, triggering an evacuation of the entire building. On September 9, 2009, the police interviewed various employees and research students who were in the building the day before. Among those questioned was Ray Clark, a lab technician. Though not a Yale student, Ray had been working there for some time. He told the police that he had entered the lab at 7 a.m. and seen Annie in room G13. Ray also mentioned that he saw Annie leaving the lab before the fire alarm went off. The investigation continued, with police reviewing all security footage from around the campus. They scoured every hallway, classroom, and even the garbage bins for clues. However, all their efforts seemed futile, as they found no trace of Annie. Almost a full day passed, and there was still no sign of her. Despite reviewing footage from over 70 security cameras, the police found no additional images of Annie. The university administration offered a $10,000 reward for any information regarding Annie's whereabouts. Her fiancé immediately flew in from New York, while her family rushed over from California to assist in the search. Yale, known as one of the oldest and most prestigious universities in New Haven, became enveloped in a cloud of fear and uncertainty due to the mysterious disappearance of PhD student Annie Lee. Her case quickly garnered significant public interest, with journalists swarming the campus.
Continues to head up the investigation, numbering some 100 law enforcement authorities from Yale, the city of New Haven, and the state of Connecticut in an all-out effort to...
The university urged students to avoid speaking with the media, fearing misinformation could spread, impacting the community's morale and the university's reputation.
The mysterious and troubling disappearance of doctoral student Annie Lee is most unwelcome publicity.
Some speculated that Annie might have gotten cold feet about her impending wedding and decided to run away. However, those who knew her dismissed this theory as absurd. Annie and her family had been planning the wedding for over a year, and she was not known to act impulsively or disregard others' feelings. On September 12th, forensic experts were called in for a more thorough examination of the building. This time they focused more on room G13, Annie's lab. They discovered faint bloodstains on one of the walls. Meanwhile, another investigative team found beads from a necklace scattered in the storage area of room G22. The beads were quickly identified as part of a necklace that Annie often wore. Further examination of the ceiling revealed a blood-stained sock and a blue latex glove. Subsequently, the police applied luminol, a chemical that reacts with blood, making it visible even if diluted up to 10,000 times. The substance, reacting with the blood, emitted a bluish glow under the light, revealing blood splatters across room G13 and the adjacent room G222. Following the blood trail, the police moved to the men's changing area and the bathroom near room G22. A foul smell led them, but its source remained elusive, prompting the deployment of a cadaver dog for a more extensive search. The entire building was sealed off, transforming from an educational facility to the scene of a chilling crime. On September 13, 2009, the decomposing body of Annie was found stuffed upside down in a wall cavity where the building's water pipes were located in room G22. This day should have been Annie's wedding day, the day she was supposed to feel most beautiful and happiest. However, in a cruel twist of fate, instead of celebrating, her family had to identify her body. It was a tragic end, her small frame crushed and forcibly inserted behind the narrow wall by her murderer. The autopsy determined that Annie died from asphyxiation, and she suffered broken jaw and collarbone injuries while still alive. The forensic experts also found evidence suggesting she may have been sexually assaulted. Near Annie's body, her access card, a medical glove, and a blue pen were discovered. DNA samples collected from Annie's clothes and the surrounding area were sent for analysis. Thousands of people came to the campus to hold a candlelight vigil in memory of Annie and to offer condolences to her family. Her death significantly impacted the psyche of the students there. The university responded by sending emails to all students, informing them that they had increased mental health counseling services and established a 24/7 support hotline for anyone in need of emotional assistance. To enter the building, one would need an access code or a card, leading police to believe the perpetrator was not an outsider, but rather a student or staff member from within the school. This revelation increased the unease among the community, as the real culprit could be walking among them. Fearful students started moving in large groups from one class to another, and evening classes and shifts were cancelled. The sense of safety was shattered as the police had yet to apprehend the suspect.
Parents are calling in, checking, are you safe?
Eventually, the DNA results came back. The samples found near Annie's body matched those of a known criminal named Kieran Robinson. This discovery baffled the police, as Robinson had been killed several years earlier. However, the mystery was soon solved. Robinson had previously worked as a plumber and had been hired to repair water pipes in room G22 years before his death. His DNA data had not matched any other cases until now. The police reviewed access card logs for all the lab employees and found that only 2 people had swiped into room G13. The first, a company equipment supplier, was quickly eliminated from suspicion due to solid alibis. The second was Raymond Clark, a 24-year-old lab technician. His statement to the police that he saw Annie leaving the building on the day she disappeared instantly made him a prime suspect, especially since security footage confirmed that Annie never left the building. Ray was known to be short-tempered and demanding in the workplace. He would visibly become upset if any student left the lab untidy. While Ray and Annie did not have any significant relationship beyond passing acquaintances in the corridor, the only direct contact they had was a few weeks before Annie's murder, when Ray emailed her to complain about her not cleaning up mouse cages after her experiments. Several colleagues came to Ray's defense, describing him as approachable yet serious and disciplined at work. Ray had no prior criminal behavior. Between 10:40 a.m. and 3:45 p.m. on September 8, 2009, Ray accessed rooms G13 and G22 a total of 55 times. This was verified by the swipe card log. Security footage also showed Ray leaving the building with others when the fire alarm sounded and then returning at 1:10 p.m. He was seen wandering the basement area and appeared to have changed his uniform at some point during the day. Security cameras captured Ray exiting the building and sitting with his head in his hands on a step. When police interrogated him a second time, they noted fresh scratches on his face and arms, along with some new bruises. Ray claimed he was scratched by a cat. Police administered a lie detector test, which Ray failed disastrously. Despite the police being almost certain they had caught the perpetrator, the results of a polygraph are only advisory and not legally binding. Therefore, they could not arrest Ray based on this alone. They took a DNA sample and had to release him while waiting for the results. Early in the morning of September 17, 2009, the area around the lodging house number 8 was swarmed by police cars, as officers had a warrant for Ray's arrest. They set up barriers, and a team of FBI agents rushed straight to room number 24. There, they found Ray and his father having breakfast. Police handcuffed Ray, much to his father's astonishment. DNA results confirmed Ray was the murderer of Annie. Police also obtained a warrant to search Ray's home and workspace, where they found his uniform and shoes worn during the murder still stained with Annie's blood. They also found blue pens matching the one found beside Annie's body. These findings, along with his swipe card history, were irrefutable evidence against Ray. Police believe Annie was murdered just before the fire alarm went off during a struggle in which Ray accidentally triggered the alarm. He left Annie's body in the lab and left with the evacuating crowd. Upon returning, he quickly moved her body to room G22 and hid it behind the wall. Investigators stated they had enough evidence to convict Ray without needing to establish a motive. Despite his arrest, Ray never explained why he killed Annie. Public speculation about Ray's motive was rampant.
You know, the only person that really truly knows the motive in this crime is the suspect. What made him do what he did? And we may not know till trial, or we may never know.
Some theorized Ray had been secretly in love with Annie, who mentioned her upcoming marriage and impending leave from work, sparking his jealous rage. This theory was dismissed by many, as Ray was engaged to another woman at the time. Colleagues insisted there was no romantic relationship between Annie and Ray. Others suggested Ray was a controlling person, insecure about his work, primarily responsible for cleaning and maintaining the lab. They speculated he might have harbored resentment towards the research students, projecting his anger onto them. However, all these remained conjectures. To this day, the true motive behind Ray's actions remains known only to him.
Keith, Raymond Clark arrived here at New Haven Superior Court just before 9:30 this morning and is expected to receive 45 years behind bars for the killing of Annie Lay.
In March 2011, after multiple delayed court sessions, Ray pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to 44 years in prison. He expressed deep remorse but offered no explanation for his actions. Ray is expected to be released in 2053 at the age of 68. Though Annie's life was cruelly and unjustly taken, her family and friends say she will forever live on in their hearts as the most wonderful person they had ever known.
Annie was always the same little girl that has and will always be in our hearts and in our prayers. Jitu, I miss you, and I will always love you.